Okay, good morning, everybody. So this is the information session for the European Co-Development Call. Deadline is of which is the end of February 2026. And so we're going to go through this is a general information session. So we'll go through the eligibility criteria, the award criteria, a few tips and tricks about how to get started on the application and what to do. We will be doing a technical session, which will be like 2 hours going through the application in detail. So we will do that after Christmas. So if you are interested, if you after this session, if you are interested in applying, you can let us know and then we can send you the information for that session. And it's a really handy one because you can literally get a lot of the technical itty bitty stuff done while we're going through the application step by step. So this is the more general one. So myself and Jules are going to go through this with you. So okay. So okay, so Creative Europe. What is Creative Europe? Okay, so for most of you know this, but just in case those of you don't, Creative Europe is the EU funding program for the culture and creative sectors. It's a 7-year they go on 7-year program. So the current program has funding of 2.44 billion for those 7 years. It sounds like a lot, but when it gets broken down into years and then strands and then funding calls and deadlines, there's still limited budget there. So it's divided into three. So 56% is the media program or sub-program. Culture sub-program is 36%, and then the cross-sectoral strand is 13%. So we're on the media side, and we cover audience, we cover new distribution channels and strengthening audience development. So be festivals and distribution, etc. Policy issues. Then we do content, which is what this is part of, and then we do business as well, um, which would be like innovative tools and business models and training and that type of thing. So it's a very broad program that covers everything to do with the sectors. Okay. The content cluster, we're getting narrower and narrower. So the content cluster is Slate and Mini Slate. We have co-development and then we have video games and immersive content development. So they're all development schemes. And then we have the TV and online content funding, which is for production. So that's all under the content cluster. But then today we are focusing on the European co-development, which is towards reinforcing the European added value of support to the development of individual projects. Okay, so Creative Europe, one of the main remits of Creative Europe is to focus on transnational cooperation, where support from national programs is limited. And European collaboration also allows projects to scale up and to reach audiences across the board, across borders. So where it says there where support from national programs is limited, this is a complementary funding. So we know that every funding, every country now has some sort of development funding now, whereas years ago they didn't. So that's where Creative Europe used to step in and just do development funding. Whereas now, because of the development funding in national funders across Europe, this is a complementary funding where this is really to encourage collaboration across borders, and particularly those countries where support from national programs is limited, which would be the lower capacity countries. We are considered a high capacity country, so it would be good beneficial if you were co-developing with a company from a lower capacity country. It's not necessary, but that's part of the remit of Creative Europe, just to let you know where their thinking is coming from. So for this call, the deadline is 25th February 2026 at 4 p.m. At 4 p.m. Irish time, I should say Irish time there. Everywhere across the portal, you will see 5 p.m., but it's 5 p.m. Brussels time, 5 p.m., Central European time. So always make sure that it's when you're looking at it that you see 4 p.m. because it does catch people out. So just be careful on that because the system shuts down and you can't apply then. It can be subject to change occasionally, so just double check on the portal just to make sure what the actual final deadline is. So the results, it does take time. This is the thing about European funding. It does take time. So it does take 5 or 6 months for you to get an answer back. So we're looking at August 2026 before you find out whether you're eligible or not. The budget this year has gone up. Last year was, I think it was 6.5 million. It's gone up to 9 million this year, which is really good. So hopefully now the number of applications, where the number of applications may stay the same, might go down a bit, but we're hoping that more projects will be funded. And then the duration of projects would be 30 months. Extensions are possible if justified and after amendment. So you've got 30 months to develop your project. Um, okay. So the funded activities, it support, like I said, support cooperation between European production companies that are developing works with a strong international audience potential. So this is development of a single, just one project, animation, creative documentary, or fiction project. So this isn't for video games. That's for video games. It's in video games called. It's not for, well, we'll go through the list of ineligible projects now in a few minutes. But it's very much focused on creative doc, animation, or fiction. Fiction can be film or TV drama. But they have to have high creative value, cultural diversity, wide cross-border exploitation potential, and then intended for commercial exploitation, cinema released, TV broadcasting, or it could be on digital platforms either. So the impact of this, they expect, is to increase collaboration at development stage between European production companies. So the idea, so companies are working together earlier and earlier, and that's what they want. So, this sales agents are getting on board earlier, distributors are getting on board earlier. So they want the production companies to start working at a much earlier stage. So instead of one company working on a project and then waiting until it's nice and ready and then go look for a co-producer. They want companies to work together at a creative stage much earlier on. They figure it leads to a stronger co-production. It leads to a better chance of it working cross borders because there's different voices involved. So so that's really what they're pushing here. So the idea is that they're from different countries and different markets, and hence so there's an increase of co-productions. That's the plan. So they expect that this would make a stronger position on European international markets for companies selected for funding with increased quality, feasibility, cross-border potential, and market value for supported projects. So this is a great call if you're smaller, you're not ready for slate funding yet. If you have a project of your own, or if maybe you've met somebody from another country and they have a project and you can come on as a minority producer. You don't have to be the majority producer on this. So it's a good way of getting started with the media funding. But it's not only for newcomers, like a lot of established companies get involved with this too. So the project must be co-developed by minimum two European independent audiovisual production companies from at least two different media countries. Now you can have three companies involved if you want, but the minimum is two. And you must have a signed co-development agreement specifying the division of tasks and collaboration on creative aspects. So that is the main thing. So if you have a project that you think, okay, and you're talking to another company, this is the type of project, another company in a different country, different media country, so a country participating in the Creative Year program in Media Strand. So if you've got a project with the UK, unfortunately that wouldn't be eligible. But if you have a project with the UK and you've got maybe somebody else coming on board, it could be from any European country, preferably one of the low capacity countries, but it could be from any. Then that could be eligible. So so just keep that in mind. And then the co-development agreement is a necessity. So that has to be detailed in how you're breaking down that collaboration. So applicants are encouraged to develop strong and innovative collaboration at creative and financing level. So when this call started back in 2021, um, it's only what 4 years ago. It feels like so much longer. But at that stage, a lot of the projects that were applying, it was mostly, like I said earlier, it was a standalone project that was already being developed by one company, and then they were bringing on basically a co-producer early on, and so they were going to organize the financing of it. And that's not enough. It has to be at a creative level. if you put one in that's just at a financing level and you think, well, this could, we could try this way, you will not get enough points to get you over the line. So there has to be a really strong creative collaboration between the two companies for you to succeed in this call. So you must have had strategies for marketing and distribution from the outset to improve the audience reach. Again, they're saying, think of everything earlier. The earlier you think of everything, and not just the story and the script, you actually think about the marketing, you think about the distribution, you think about your audience at a much earlier stage, then they see the benefits of that later on and in the success of projects. So that's why this is a very important element of this call. So, and also this must, in your call, it must, or in your application, you must develop adequate strategies to ensure a more sustainable and more environmentally respectful industry and to ensure gender balance, inclusion, diversity, and representativeness. And we'll go through that later. So I'll pass you over to Jules. Jules, you want to go through the changes for this call? I think you're on mute.
Yeah. Sorry, I just realized. So yeah, a couple of changes. So there's the restrictions between calls have been reintroduced. That means you can only apply for one development call. So if you've applied for Slate, you're not eligible to apply for co-dev and that also includes the video games call as well. So you can only apply for one of those three calls. You can apply for multiples in the TV and online content production, just for anybody who is eyeing that one up as well. So applicants can only make one application as coordinator, but you can be a partner in another co-development call or another development call. So that's no problem. You can only just be coordinator for one of them. And yep, thank you. So the eligible participants are independent European audiovisual production companies. For consortium, there's a project leader who's the coordinator, and a minimum, can't speak this morning, of one eligible partner, not an affiliated entity of the coordinator. That's important. A minimum of 2 entities established in at least 2 media countries. So that goes back to what Orla was saying about they have to be media participating. So if you've got somebody from Britain, for example, they are eligible. They can be part of the project, but they're not one of the 2 the eligible participants here. You need 2 media countries, and you have to have a signed co-development agreement. Pop-ups here. And the coordinator can only submit one application for one of the development calls, but can be a partner again. Sorry, we've already just covered that one. So they could be a partner in the co-dev or video games applications. So eligible participants, independent, so no majority control directly or indirectly by an audiovisual media service provider, either in shareholding or commercial terms. Majority control means more than 25% of share capital held by a single AVMS provider, or 50% in the case of several AVMS providers. European, so must be European, established in one of the media countries, and owned directly or by majority participation by nationals from media countries. So being resident, for example, isn't enough. For let's say it's somebody in Ireland, being resident here isn't enough. You have to be European. You don't have to be an Irish citizen applying from Ireland. You have to be a European citizen. So nationals from media countries. For publicly listed companies, what matters there is where the location of the stock exchange, that determines the nationality. And then audiovisual production companies, the company's main objective and activity is audiovisual production. For example, if a company's main, there was a query before about they're an international dance company and they wanted to do a documentary and they had the facilities to do it, but their main activities weren't audiovisual, so they were told no, that's ineligible. So you have to be an audiovisual production company.
Yeah, and just to clarify, just to emphasize on that about the majority participation by nationals from media countries, like Jules is saying, is like they have to be nationals. Okay, residence isn't enough, and it has to be over 50% of shareholders of that company must be nationals from media countries. So just be extra careful with that and double check if you're not sure where your shareholders are nationals of. Just make sure that's in place. And also, if you have a company who own your company or a company who is a shareholder of your company, then it will go back to the shareholders of that company. So it breaks it down. So you have to break down the shareholding of your company until it comes to all individuals, and then they will see who that is majority European owned.
Um, so here they're all the eligible participants. You can see the high capacity in black and then the low capacity group A and B marked in green and red. So if you're
Yeah.
looking up, if you're wondering if you already have partners lined up, and you'll see that where they fall within the high and low capacity countries.
Mm. And yeah, and we'll go through the award criteria later, and but we'll see that there is an emphasis on this call for collaboration with low capacity countries to help the industries in those countries to bring our expertise over to them, and to help grow the sectors there. So the low capacity countries here are divided into two groups. So Group B would be the ones that if you did work with them, you'd get an extra few points as well. But it would part A, Group A would be the same. And as you can see, it's all the Eastern European countries as well as Luxembourg, Portugal, and Greece. I think all the other ones are. And if you noticed that Ukraine now is a full member of the media of Creative Europe. So and that's only in the last couple of months. So they're full members, so you can partner with them too. Okay, so we'll go on to the track record. So the applicant must demonstrate a recent experience in producing nationally distributed works. So to be eligible to apply, like you said, the company has to be European and you have to have a track record. So you must have produced one previous work since 2019 that must respect the following. Okay, it must be an animation, a fiction, or a doc, creative doc, one off or a series of minimum 24 minutes. If it's non-linear format, then it's no minimum because we do accept non-linear too. And then it must be actually released in cinema, broadcast, and TV, or made available on digital platforms in at least three countries other than your own before the deadline of submission. And I see there linear broadcast, three different broadcasters needed, and that's when I send that out, that's not needed anymore. Um, or it is. Is it? No, it's not. But we will, the importance about this is that if you have a distribution, if you have a project and it's just about done, you've got a distribution contract, and it's like, yes, we have it signed and it's going to be released in March 2026 in these countries, that's not enough. Even if you have confirmation that's definitely going to be released in March 2026, it's not enough. It has to have been already released um, before the deadline, so before the 25th of February, and you have to have proof. You don't put the proof in with the application, but you have to have that proof to hand, and show that it has been, because that can kick you out of being eligible. So just be extra careful with that. And then all of these releases must be a commercial nature, so no screenings during festivals are allowed. So it has to be commercial. So it doesn't matter how many people attended. It doesn't matter how many people watched it online. If you have it online and you have a sales report, if it's online, you have to have a sales report, and you can show that that the different countries. The sales report will show that what countries it was downloaded in or bought in. It doesn't matter how many people or how much revenue came from it, but it just shows you just have to tick this box. So that's the project itself. So who owns the project, or where does that come from? So the company you're applying with can have that project. Okay. It could be the sole production company, or if it was a co-production, they have to be the majority co-producer in the financing plan, or you must be the delegate producer. So it's like how much, in the finance plan, your company must be the majority financier of the or the majority producer in the financing plan. Get mixed up here. So just be careful of that. So if you do not have a project, if you've been doing minority co-productions for a while and it's like you're going through it and it's like I don't have that track record, it's okay, it's not all over yet. You can also put a personal on-screen credit as a producer of the CEO or of a shareholder in your company. So if the CEO or shareholder of your company has a personal producer credit on a project which has been released since 2019, and released in 3 other countries and with a different company, then that's fine. But it's only producer. It's not exec producer. It's not line producer. It's not, you can't say co-producer, because if you say co-producer, then it must be majority producer. So if you've been minority producer in projects, if your company has been minority producer in projects in the past, double check you must have that producer credit in order to be able to apply with your company for this. Does that make sense? Now, if you don't have this, then you cannot be coordinator, but you can still be a partner. It's just that the coordinator must have this track record. So if you don't have this, but your partner does, or your co-developing partner, then they can apply as coordinator, and you could do it that way. Okay. But this is really important. So have a look back over your projects, see what you have, see what you've worked on, see what your shareholders have worked on, see, because it's really important to tick this box before you go ahead. It's a very big application, so make sure that this is definite before you move on with the application. So the co-development agreement that you must have in place with your partners. So it must detail, among others, how you will collaborate on the joint development of creative aspects and storytelling. So you must detail the creative aspects in this agreement. It also must include the distribution of roles and responsibilities within the project, who's doing what, including the division of tasks, the budget split, the administrative cooperation, and the risk management as well. So you can also put in the division of the EU grant and how the payments are made. They can also be included as well. Now, there's no template on this. So it's, there is no template, but whatever your agreement is, it has to include all these things. So just be wary of that. So when you're working with, and again, like if you are working with a partner on this, well, obviously you will be working with a partner on this, you will be working close enough that you can both work on this together, and you will make sure that everything is included. Jules, do you want to? You're muted.
Sorry, I went to clear my throat and I muted so nobody wouldn't be coming across. Sorry about that. So this is for co-development of a single project only. Eligible works include animation, creative documentary, or fiction projects, either one-off or series, and that are intended for commercial exploitation. Sorry, the minimum for cinematic release, the minimum duration is 60 minutes, and that's for animation, documentary, and fiction. TV and digital platform, 24 minutes is minimum animation, documentary is 50 minutes, and fiction has a minimum of 90 minutes. And then for interactive non-linear projects, no minimum. And then this is really important. So the first day of principal photography can only happen a minimum of 10 months after the deadline.
Yeah, and so 10 months after the deadline, if my maths is correctly, no, that's not Christmas Day, is it? No.
No,
It is.
November.
No, 8 months after, yeah, no, yeah, November. No, yeah, November. No.
The
10
maths are
months
doing really
after the
well today.
25th of February is the earliest that you can start shooting. Because this is a development call. It takes up to 6 months to actually get to find out if you've got it or not. And then it's going to be a month or two to get to contract. So they can't contract with a company on a project if all of the activities have already happened and if you've already gone into production. So they have to leave 10 months. So in your application, you cannot go into production for 10 months after
That is
25th of
December. I
February.
just did my sums while Orla was chatting.
Yeah, it is. It's Christmas
It is,
Day.
sorry. Yeah, no.
Christmas Day. Okay. So if you're planning on shooting on Christmas Day in 2026, you're grand. Okay. But before that, no.
So the eligible activities, again, excuse me. The coordinator or one of the partners must own the majority rights, including rights of adaptation, if relevant, to the project through a signed contract. Equal sharing of rights between coordinator and or eligible partners is acceptable. So that's really important. So you have to own the rights. You need to make sure, and that needs to be really clear. There can be nothing ambiguous in any paperwork about that in the contract. Yeah. Next one.
Yeah, and this is also a really good way if you're not if you don't have that track record and but it's your project, but you don't have the eligible, the track record project to be a coordinator, you can be a partner, but you can still own the majority of the rights. Now, it can be the equal sharing between the two, the coordinator and the partner is fine, but you could own, as a minority partner, you can own the majority of the rights. Now, we don't recommend that it's 100% and 0%, because if you're working together and it's a co-development, generally they would expect that a certain amount of the rights would go to, would go to the other company. So like even 90/10 might be a little bit off, so the level of they would see that the level of sharing of rights, how much you share, is indicative of how much you're working together. It can be, and if it's not, if that's things are never simple. So if that's not the case, you would just explain it in the application.
So the duration normally isn't more than 30 months. Extensions are possible, but only if they're justified and they're requested through an amendment. The default start of the action is after the signature of the grant agreement, and retroactivity to date of submission can be given, but only with justification and approval. And applicants will have to specify the time period in Part A and Part B of the application form. We go through all of that in the technical session. This is more the general information, but for anybody who's not aware of what the Part A and Part B, those are just different parts to the application process. And that's where you'll specify the time period. So ineligible projects. So live recordings, TV games, talk shows, cooking shows, magazines, TV shows, reality shows, educational teaching and how-to programs. Documentaries that are promoting tourism, making of reports, animal reportages, news programs, and docu-soaps. Projects including pornographic or racist material or advocating violence, works of a promotional nature, institutional productions to promote a specific organization or its activities, music videos and video clips, video games, ebooks and interactive books, and student films and graduation works. So none of those are eligible. So the customized lump sum, it's output-based lump sum. So established after applying a maximum of 70% co-financing rate to a verified and approved detailed budget. So they do look at the budget, they do look at the overall budget, and they'll approve that in the assessment process. They do actually look at, is your budget reasonable for the project? So do be careful with that. And after that, then it's a maximum of 70% of co-financing. Both the coordinator and the partners and their affiliated entities can incur eligible costs and receive that as part of the EU grant. So the pre-financing is normally 70%, and all payments are via coordinator. The division of the EU grant and how to make payments should be defined in the co-development agreement. So it's important that you have that there in your co-development agreement that is specified.
Yeah. So, and just on that max 70% co-financing rate. So media can never fund 100% of a project. Creative Europe just can't. So you have to put up 30% minimum of the financing for your development budget. So your total development budget cannot all be funded by media. So you have to have some. So usually that could be funding from Screen Ireland. It could be funding from co-producer, it could be some of your own funds. It doesn't necessarily have to be in place when you apply. It's stronger if you do have it in place. But yeah, so just be aware of that. So never put in a budget that is the entire amount of what you're going to ask for. Okay. So the maximum EU grant depends on the number of eligible beneficiaries in the consortium. Bear with me here. Okay, so if the consortium, right, consortium as in you and your partner, and your co-producing partner or co-development partner, so if there's two eligible beneficiaries, so it's only two companies, the maximum EU grant is 120,000. Okay. But for each additional eligible beneficiary, the maximum EU grant increases by 60,000. So if you've got three partners, it's 180,000. So it used to be a case of where the first few years of this call, where some of you might be familiar with, where the maximum per partner that they could apply for was 60,000. So it was a maximum 60,000 each. But it's not like that anymore. So for two partners, the maximum is 120, but you could apply for 80 and 40,000 could come from the partner. Okay, so it's not 60 grand max anymore. So they've become a little bit more flexible on that because that's what they've seen with the projects coming in, and that was the what was needed. So, but every partner that you add, the maximum amount you can apply for is goes up by 60,000. So in the case of a TV series, with intended production budget of 20 million or more. And if any of you have a TV series with intended production budget of 20 million or more, please let us know. The maximum EU grant for the consortium comprising of two eligible beneficiaries is 200,000. So increasing by 100,000 for each additional eligible beneficiary. Okay, that's just the size of it. And again, it's representing max 70% of the eligible budget. So affiliated entities, right? So this comes up a lot, and they've really focused on this in the last couple of years. So an affiliated entity is any legal entity that is under direct or indirect control of a participating beneficiary. So one of it's either you or one of your partners or the co-developing partners, or under the same direct or indirect control as the participating beneficiary, or directly or indirectly controlling a participating beneficiary. So entities linked to a beneficiary which participate in the action with similar rights and obligations, but don't sign that's the gap is the agreement, and hence do not become beneficiaries themselves. You can get a part of the EU grant, and you must comply with the affiliated entity can get a part of the EU grant, but must comply with call conditions and be validated. But they don't count towards the minimum eligibility criteria for consortium composition because they make it any more complicated. So if you have an affiliated entity, if there is if you have a company that you've set up a company in France, and it's the same shareholders and it's the same, that would be an affiliated entity. So they can't be your partners in this. They like your eligible partners, they can be a partner, but you would have to, like if they are doing some of the work, you have to explain, the more transparent you are with regard to these affiliated entities, the better. But they can't be the direct co-developing company, but you still have to declare them. So, how are proposals assessed? Are there any questions? Now I can turn off the recording if anybody wants to come on screen, or will we keep going? I don't see any questions coming in.
There's a couple in the chat there.
Oh, there is a couple in the chat there. What are the low support? Okay, we've gone through the low support countries in the EU. Okay. Is there any limit on how many projects you can be a partner on? There isn't. Nope. Nope,
Keep going.
there isn't. Yeah, yeah. If you want to be involved in a few projects, yeah, that's fine. Bear in mind that the projects you'll be in competition with yourselves because there's a limited amount of funding. But yeah, you can be partners on a number of applications. You just can only be coordinator on one. And if you've already applied for the Slate funding call deadline, which was yesterday, then you cannot apply this year. You cannot apply for the co-development funding. You'll have to wait till next year. Does the co-development agreement have to specify what will happen if the project goes into full production, regional splits, profit sharing between the company? That's up to you. That's up to you. I mean, this is very much about the development of the project that they want to see. They want to see that at least during development, this is what the plan is, with a view of going into co-production, but you don't have to go into that would be more a co-production agreement. But you can put in more. And I think the more you put in like that, the more you've worked out, the more The stronger it is because the more the more realistic it looks, the more feasible it is, the more it shows that you actually are working together very closely. So I think the more information that you put in there, the better. But no, you don't have to. Will Creative Europe only release funds once they see proof of the 30% financing raised by the producer? Okay, no. You will get a if you get awarded funding and if you get the amount of points, and we'll go through that, how many points you need to get funded. Um, Once you get that, then you're awarded funding. So when you go through the GAP process, which is the grant agreement preparation, when you hear GAP, it's grant agreement preparation. So that's basically the contracting process. So when you go through the GAP process, um, then they will ask you to basically declare you will sign it that you have the 30%. That you so basically you are signing the fact that you are able to cover that 30%. So whereas in the application they really want to see where that's going to come from, but a contracting stage they want you to declare that you have that. Can you get a copy of the slides? Yes. Yes, you can. Okay. Well, can the 30% already be spent? Not well, it could be. Um, it could be, but the idea of this is that of this call is that you are putting in a budget with and in the budget is what you are planning to spend it on, sort of in the future. So you can, in theory, have already spent it and it's part of the development, but ideally not. Um, Ideally that 30%. So that 100% is going to be everything that you are going to be working on from the day of your submission. So because that's when the costs can be eligible from. So ideally it would be, that's everything that you are working on. So ideally not. Yeah, no, it's a tricky one there. Okay. I mean, you have to have a certain amount of development done because, that's the thing about development. There's very little funding out there for early development. But you have to have a certain amount of development done because you have to be able to talk about your project here. There has to be strong strategies around it. You have to have your creative material, decent amount of creative material in your application. So there has to be, a certain amount of development done already. So we understand that you've already spent it. Um, but yeah, but it just can be a bit tricky. What if you've been filming in real time but not in production before the 10 months? Another tricky one. You're coming up with the tricky ones today. Um, the difficulty, and I know with documentary, this is, that 10 months is difficult. And we get that. But if you are filming, and I mean, it could be recce's, it could be, it could be some kind of teaser, it could be, there could be a certain amount of shooting, but it can't be the official production start. So if your documentary is on an, is it about something and a major event is actually happening this month, and that you have to shoot it and it has to be in your documentary, that's going to be a hard one to get over the line. That's going to be a hard one to explain the application because the production can't officially have started until 10 months after. I hope that helps. If that doesn't fully explain your questions, you can email us directly at our contact details will be at the end, and we can meet with you and go through it. So any of those questions we can help you with, and we can delve further into it then if we don't have the questions the answers straight away. Jules, do you want to?
Yeah, so how the proposals are assessed, admissibility criteria and looking at submission requirements. So they will always assess going back to that. Eligibility criteria, they look at eligible participants and eligible activities. So you have to be eligible. They will look at this first because if the partners aren't, if all the partners involved aren't eligible, if you don't make up the core eligibility, then it will be deemed inadmissible. Um, And then they'll also look at the eligible activities. Then on to the financial and operational capacity and exclusion, expertise and solvency, situations of exclusion, bankruptcy. So anyone who has been bankrupt, they are detailed in the call sheet so that they're not eligible for it. Then they'll also look at the award criteria. Then that's the evaluation of the quality of the proposal. So anyone who's familiar with these knows that it's on a points threshold. 70, there's 100 is the total. And again, you'll see all that detailed in the call document, and the breakdown of those 100 points. And it's a 70 points quality threshold. That's just the quality. It's much, much higher, and they're getting higher. They are getting higher. Hopefully, the fact that we can only apply for one development call will reduce some of that, and budgets have been increased in calls. So that's hopefully going to just take away some of that little competition, I'm going to say, that little sting that makes it a little bit difficult. So you want to aim as high as the 70. That's not going to be enough. That just means you are eligible to be assessed for the call, but the higher, the better. And those numbers, we need to get them up. And it's important to mention, it'll be mentioned again later on. It'll be mentioned again in the if you join the technical sessions later on. Always keep the award criteria. Have a good look at the call document in terms of admissibility criteria, the eligibility criteria, and the financial and operating capacity exclusions. But keep the award criteria open. Anything you're doing with the application, always have that open in front of you as you're going through all the questions. So in terms of financial capacity, you must have stable and sufficient resources to implement the project and contribute your share. So that's based on annual accounts, and they'll be updated if you're selected. So this isn't something that's done in advance. This is only if you're selected, and that'll all be uploaded to the participant portal if you are selected. Operational capacity must have the know-how, qualifications, and resources to implement the project. And that's evaluated based on the project management criterion. So make sure that you really have a look at those specifications in the call document, really detail it and show that you do have the capacity to run this, because you do. And sometimes people just haven't got enough of that information, and then they do want to see that really strong capacity to run the project. So the evaluation is just more generally, and they do have there is more detailed within this, but it's they're under these 4 headings. So relevance gets 40 points, really important there. Need to be relevant to the call. The quality of content and activities is 20 points, and the project management is 25 points, and dissemination 15 points. So again, as mentioned already, the quality threshold is 70, but you want to be aiming much, much higher. They're mid 80s to high 90s. Lots of pretty much all of the calls, they're kind of going between mid 80s and high 90s. Some of the calls were 96, 97 were the awarded points. So you kind of want to aim towards the mid 80s or 100 to be like. So no, you need to get as high as you can. Don't leave any points. If you see something, when you see the breakdown of the points, if you see something, yeah, that's 5 points, that's not so bad, we don't need to concentrate. You do need to concentrate on that. Grab as many points as you have. If you have something, show it. Make sure you break it down really, really well, and keep that document open in front of you.
Yeah, so and these headings are the same. You'll see they're the same in every Creative Europe call. But the weighting of the points changes depending on the call. So we'll go through the award criteria now. So the first one is 40 points. That's 40%. And it's the added value of the code development approach. So this one here is for 10 points. So added value of the code development approach, in particular with regards to the nature of the project and the complementarity of the background and experience of the partners. So think about the project, think about why you're doing it and why you picked your partner, how you're working together on it. But really, what is it about it that brought you two together? What is it about your experience that makes you a perfect fit for this particular project? So really think about um that it's a very strong partnership, and you're working on the right project together. So just it 65 points of this, between this and the project management, that's 65 points. And this is all really on how you're working together. Whereas, and what is it? So it's 20. Yeah, 20 points for the quality and content of activities, but 40 points and 25 points is really for how you're working together. So that's the remit of this. So it's different to Slate, where Slate is about its company development and then the quality of the project and how the project is going to help grow your company. Whereas this is all about how you are working together, how the two companies are working together. So you have to keep that in mind. So if you have a project and that's pretty much ready to go, and you're like, you're going out and you're looking for a company now that you can just tag on, that's not going to work. This is really about collaboration, and we can't stress that enough. So that's 10 points. So the level of collaboration between the production companies in terms of joint development on the creative aspects and storytelling alone is 10 points. So you have to, choose the how you companies fit together and the reasons why you came together and how it's perfect for the project. That's 10 points. Your level of collaboration together on the creative side is 10 points. And then the European dimension of the collaboration, what countries you're both coming from, in particular concerning cooperation between countries of different market sizes. So that's where we're talking about the low capacity countries, including a partner from the LCC Group A or Group B, as well as the linguistic and geographical diversity. So this is, so again, like we were saying before, this is the remit of this call. This is the thinking about why this call exists, is to help, you know, companies from these different countries collaborate, but it's really to help the sectors in those the smaller countries. So that's why you get extra points if you're working with a company from a low capacity country. That's it. So if you are working with, Belgium or Netherlands, that's absolutely fine, but you will lose a couple of points. And that's just the way it is. That's because every single word of these award criteria, there are points attached to it. So don't, it's like your leaving cert questions. Every single word has points attached to it. So if it says here, including a partner from the LCC Group A or Group B, if you don't have that, as well as linguistic and geographical diversity, if you don't have that, then you're going to lose points. Okay, it could be one or two, and you could balance that out with having a really strong answer from another question. But just be careful with that. That if you are working with, one of the Scandinavians or with France or Spain or one of the high capacity countries, that's absolutely fine. But just be aware that you will lose a couple of points because you're not working with a low capacity country. So then we got the adequacy of the strategies presented to ensure a more sustainable, environmentally respectful industry, and also the adequacy of the strategies to ensure gender balance, inclusion, diversity, and representativeness. So with the first question here, the 5 points for the more sustainable, environmentally respectful industry. This is not about the content of the project. This is about the actual company. This is about how the project is going to come together, and what are the strategies you are putting in place as a company, both companies. Okay, so don't forget your partner company is important here too. And how you see working on the project to get together. What are you putting in place? What policies you have in place? What carbon calculator are you going to use? What is your policy? What's the training? What's the strategies? Do you have a consultant? Anything like that. If you've worked on projects before that you've used Albert, explain your experience, but also explain how you're going to adapt, bring that experience to this project for the development of it. Yes, you can talk about production of it, but also, particularly about the development of it. So then we got the adequacy of the strategies to ensure gender balance, inclusion, diversity, and representativeness. Now, this includes not just the company's policies and strategies, but also the content of the project as well. So this could be a theme in the project that you're putting forward. And that's fine, and that goes towards some detail that here. But then this is also about the policies that both companies have in terms of these topics here. Now, and just like these started back in 2021. These two, so these 5 points for each are in every Creative Europe call. And so this is part of the EU-wide agenda. So it's the green agenda. So this has to be answered. But back in 2021, it was a case of, well, we don't have, reusable coffee cups in our office, and we don't print out emails. And but it's gone a lot further in the last 4 years. So they need a lot more detail. And it's the same with regard to second question, with regard to gender balance and inclusion. Still, they are seeing that most of the applications they're focusing on gender balance, and they're not focusing on inclusion, diversity, and representativeness. And if you see here, there are four issues here. There's gender balance, inclusion, diversity, and representative. They all have to be dealt with. So if you just deal with gender balance, you're only going to get a couple of points. So you have to deal with the others. So you have to talk about inclusion. You have to talk about diversity. It could be ethnicity. It could be socioeconomic. It could be neurodiverse disabilities. It could be like there's a very broad range, which every company I think is really starting to think about. So you should have policies anyway in place, and you can talk about that here, but not just gender balance. So just be aware of that. So here then we've got 20 points for the quality of the content on activities. So this is the quality of the work and the potential to reach audiences at European international levels. So this is where your creative dossier will come in. Your creative material that you have really comes into play. So it's the strength and distinctiveness of the idea, the subject matter and the project focus, and then dramatic potential, the quality of the writing, narrative choices, character development, and the world of the story, creative potential, quality of the visual approach and artwork. Okay, so in the application, there is a template for a creative dossier, and it details everything that you can put in here. So it's also good inspiration. It's like, okay, they're looking for your visual approach. They're looking for director's notes. They're looking for talk about the soundscape, talk about the passion you have for the project. This is what really comes across. And in the age of AI, authenticity really, flows to the top. So really talk about your the passion you have for this project and how you're going to get it made no matter what, and why this project is so important. Um so and and they are looking for that USP of a project. So, there's so much out there. So what is it, about your project that's going to cut through the noise of everything else? So yeah, so really spend time on the creative dossier. And it is tempting these days. We'll talk about AI in a bit. To bring AI into it, and just be very careful. The more personal it is, the more authentic it is, and it does they can tell. So it does come across as a stronger application you know when you use your own voice. So here we have the potential to reach audiences at a European international level. This is 10 points. So the transnational, and again, every single word here you have to deal with. So the transnational appeal of the concept or subject of the work, which you have to do. So a way of listing it out, and we will go through this during the technical session. We will talk about how to lay out your answers. You literally break them down. You can have different headings within your answer, different colors if you want. So the transnational appeal of the concept of the subject, the potential to reach a larger and more diverse audiences, in particular young and digital native audiences, children, teenagers, and young adults. So they're really, you have to focus on that. The potential of the work to cross borders taken into account the creative team. Is the director known known internationally? What have they done? Where have they been successful? The intended cast or the international ambition with regard to the cast. The cast is becoming more important, and we see a certain amount of the evaluation feedback forms that you get, and more often than not now they mention the cast, and particularly if the cast isn't detailed in the application. So I know you're thinking right now, gone, but that's why we need development funding, is to go through this and think of this. So and figure this one out. But you have to have an idea. You have to have a good idea of who you're thinking of, who would be good for the project. Do you have any ins there? Do you have any contacts? Have you worked with them before? Where are they big? What audiences will they bring? And don't just think about the countries where both of the companies are from. So if you're thinking, okay, there's a company from Ireland and a company from Latvia, and we'll talk about, well, there's a Latvian director, and it's really big in Latvia, and and there's an Irish cast, and it's like, but you have to look beyond those countries. Okay, so this is a European-wide um, uh, funding, God's a European-wide program. So they're looking to see how is this project going to go cross borders and hit certain countries across Europe. So not just those countries, those two countries. And then the collaboration strategy with non-national partners. So again, you're talking about the co-producers, but you're also talking about are there distributors that you're working with? Are there broadcasters? And you will detail this later in your distribution strategy, but don't be afraid to repeat yourself. So answer the question as is. If you're looking at the question and going, well, I'm going to be talking about that later anyway, so I don't need to detail it here, the evaluator are putting the points here. Okay, so you have to answer the questions with regard as they appear. Okay, so even though you're answering it again in a later stage, if there is a strong distribution strategy, European partners in the distribution strategy, detail it here as well. Okay, you don't want to have the evaluator to have to look for it in another question. Jules, do you want to go through again with the mute
Sorry, keep doing that.
Zoom? Isn't it great?
Yeah. I keep them to clear my throat. I was like, nobody wants to listen to that. So I keep muting up. So sorry. Project management overall. So 25 points. It goes to the distribution of the roles and responsibility within the project, including the division of tasks, the budget split, the administrative cooperation, and risk management. So this goes back to some of the things we were talking about earlier. They do want to see that division. Obviously, the division of tasks in terms of partners is really, really important. It has to be a creative collaboration as much as everything else. And they do want to see how you're going to do that, how you're working together. And so there's 5 points for that. And then adequacy of the development strategy, of the development plan, the schedule, and development budget to the needs of the work. And so there's 10 points going for that.
And with the development strategy, it's 10 points. So you have to detail this. So when they talk about the plan to the actual project, so they're looking at your creative dossier and then they see your development plan. So if they're going, well, they don't match, that you're not doing enough or you're not and with regards to the budget as well, they might think, well, the budget's too low. So for that. So just make sure that it's all coherent, that it all makes sense. You have to put a schedule in month by month is really good, or you can do a quarterly, but I think month by month is good, and then you can show. And this is not just about the creative development. This is everything. This is you going to markets. This is meeting your financiers. This is it's everything. Archive. Recce's looking at casts, so everything goes into that schedule, and then they can see that it makes sense for the project, that the timeline makes sense for the project, that you're being ambitious but realistic with regard to the timing and everything else. And so just make sure spend a good bit of time on the development strategy because at the end of the day it is a development call. So
And I think the one there, the first one there, like 5 points, that's a good example of one where it's you think 5 points, oh, this will be enough information. I mean, that goes to the core of it, really. It's a co-development one. So that's a really, really important 5 points. And make sure it's really, really well mapped out, that you can show you have a good view to the overall development of the project, how you're working together. That's one of those. Just make sure it's really, really clear in that one to get those 5 points, because they're 5 points easily lost if it's not clear.
yeah, exactly. And that's where the detailed co-development agreement comes into
Yeah.
play here. And then they can really see it. And the risk management, there's a risk management section in the application. So that it'll go talk about it here, or it'll be marked this at this point as well. So just be careful. So in the application, there are questions aligned with the award criteria. Sometimes they're worded a little differently, but make sure that you're answering both. Okay, make sure you are covering the question itself, which we will go through in the technical session. The question itself, but also every word in these award criteria.
So then C is the adequacy of the financing strategy, and there's 10 points awarded to that. So that's the adequacy of the production costs to the project and to the development budget, and then adequacy of the financing strategy compared to the estimated production cost in terms of awareness of the suitable potential financial partners and territories targeted, in terms of diversity of sources of funding foreseen. So they will look at that overall. These will be, the assessors will be people who are in this industry, who do understand the overall budgeting, what it should cost. And they will see, have you over budgeted? Have you not budgeted enough for some things? They will understand all of that. So make sure it's a really good financing strategy.
And in terms of the financing strategy, a plan A and a plan B always works.
Yes.
Definitely, because they do, like I said, they do want, stick it on a post-it. It's ambitious but realistic. So yes, they want you to be ambitious, but it's like if that major funder that you're expecting falls through, what are you going to do?
They
Okay,
have
so
put that back as a call, where as a reply, a response to applications where they've seen that, okay, this is okay and it is very good, it's very sound, but what's your backup
but
should this not
yeah,
come through?
yeah. And they do want to show, they do want to see that you're aware of your weaknesses. So if they, and the weaknesses of your potential of your planned finance and strategy. So do address them. Okay. A couple of questions come in here. Is Ukraine now that it's recently, yeah, and now that it's recently in the full media countries classified as a LCC Group A or Group B country? I'm assuming it's a Group B. So yeah, it would be Group B country. And do the cast director needs to be secured or just a wish list? Um, the director should be, because when the evaluator will have a look at your creative material and the strategies. But if the director isn't attached, they could easily, they're not fully confident, because when a director comes on board, everything can change. So at least when the director is on board, then it's like, okay, so chances are it is going to look like this when it hits the screen. So, or roughly once the director's on board, whereas a different director can change it. So they don't really know them how to evaluate it, because they can't evaluate it fully, because they're not fully sure what the plan is. So ideally, yes, for director. Obviously, for TV is different. The writer's more important with TV, but definitely with film, the director should be on if possible. With cast, not necessarily. I mean, but what is your intention for the cast? How are they going to work? How are they going to work internationally? Do you have any contacts? Have you worked with them before? How are there any themes regarding the project that they're really interested in, that they will come on board? So definitely, and then they can see, it's like, okay, actually, and then they can visualize it. Then the evaluator can visualize it and they go, okay, but I can see that project, them in that project, and they haven't, and they've worked with them before. It's like, okay, I mean, that's actually realistic. So, and you don't have to have worked with them before. You can be ambitious in terms of it, but yeah, you have to talk about cast, because it's amazing the amount of applications that come in, both for Slate and for co-development. And it's like, well, a world-renowned cast will be included in this. And it's like, well, what does that mean? So it's very difficult then for the evaluator to visualize it. So yeah, so try and detail the cast. Another question. So no, it's a big chunk of money from documentary development. Is there the same obligation to spend the funds in the respective countries, locations, or posts as there is in tax incentive schemes? There's no obligation, and you don't have to apply for the max. Like that's just the max you can apply for. Like for documentary, obviously, it's going to be very hard to have 100. Like if you've got two partners in a small project, to have 120,000 as your 70% of your total development budget, let alone production. So no, you don't have to hit that much at all. It could be 30,000 each, or whatever. So it can be a good bit less for documentary. That's fine. And there's no obligation to spend the funds in the respective countries. Um, locations are posted. No, it's completely up to the project. But obviously, in terms of the co-development agreement with your partner, there would be a certain amount, we're assuming, um, of that within the project, but every project is different and they take every project on its own merits. And no, there's no obligation like that in Creative Europe. It's a lot looser in terms of that, but you just have to convince them that that with your strategies, um that it uh yeah, and it's not about spending, sorry, it's not about spending the money in different countries. You have to have a very strong European creative team. I mean, the project it can be shot in Australia. It could be a South American story, that's fine. But in that case, it has to be a really strong European creative team here. So it's more about the creative team, where they're based, what the plan is. So if you do have a project that's located somewhere else, just make sure it's balanced out with a really strong European strategist. Another question. For eligibility as coordinator, EMEA national with personal credit as a producer of a 24-minute project. Does that project have to be released and broadcast by the time of applying? How about the project still in post? Has to be released. It has to be released in those three countries outside of your own country. And there's no going past that. It has to be either broadcast on TV, it has to have been, released in the cinemas commercially, it has to be, released online. Um, but yeah, but it has to be, unfortunately. Okay, and then we have dissemination here
And
for
just
15.
actually, just to
Yep.
specify, just say EMEA national there. So it has to be EU, specifically EU, part of the EMEA region. Maybe it was the EU that was mentioned, but but it does specifically have to be EU national, not EMEA generally.
Well, they have to be a part of the media countries, which is
Yes,
more
sorry,
than
EU
EU.
media countries. Sorry, that one said
Yeah,
EMEA, so I just wanted because that's your Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So just
yes,
make
that's
to
true.
make sure.
Yes,
Sorry,
yes, 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 yes,
sorry,
yes, yes,
just to
yes.
specify. I know we've already said that,
Yeah,
but just in case.
yeah, 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 yeah. Good point. Thank you. Good catch, Jules. Okay, so we have the quality of the marketing strategy and the European um, and international distribution plan. So the marketing strategy is 5 points, and this allows to reach audiences in an early stage. So this is the early stage. So this is how you're going to reach audience during the development of the projects. So the definition of USPs, target audiences and markets, innovative marketing and audience engagement tools, and promotional activities. So how are you going to engage your audience while you're developing this project? So it is earlier. And this can be B2C, business to customer, or it can be B2B, business to business as well. So how are you going to create material, create campaigns that will target your financiers to get them on board? And then the distribution strategy is the relevance, and this is 10 points, the relevance of the European international distribution strategy regarding, and again, deal with all of these: identified target audience, distribution methods foreseen, distribution partners in place or envisaged, and awareness of the markets and European international vision, relevance of choice of territories as well, neighboring countries and regions in Europe and other continents. So this is particularly important. Who is your audience and how you're going to reach them? Okay, so we'll go through briefly how to apply. So all the applications, so there's a few elements and it is very detailed. So we're just going to gloss over it and just tell you that it's a big ordeal. But if you are applying, we will go through this in the technical session after Christmas. So there's a part A, which is the administrative information. So that's on the portal, the beautiful funding antennas portal that we all have to deal with. The part B is the technical description of the project. So this is your Word document that you're going to be working on mostly. And these are directly linked to the award criteria. This is where your questions are. This is where your leave cert essays come in handy. Okay. So this is so this is the information that allows to assess the award criteria. And then there's work packages and deliverables as well, which are really important. But again, very straightforward. Don't get freaked out about them. We will go through that in detail, and it's in the call document. So the call document is your Bible with regard to this call. So everything is detailed in there. Then part C is a very short thing. It takes you 2 minutes. It's KPI related data linked to the applicant. So it's only it literally it takes 2 minutes. But then there were 8 mandatory annexes uploaded with part B. Or is that 7 including part or plus part B? But we'll go through them anyway. So the mandatory templates. So there are templates available in the submission system. Use them. Don't make up your own if there is a mandatory template there, because if you start making up your own, they chances are that document won't be allowed. So it will be inadmissible, and then you could be made ineligible.
Applications have been rendered inadmissible because of using the wrong templates or not answering questions. Both of those things.
Which is painful because it's an awful lot of work to do these, as many of you know. So to fall down on something small is a bit heartbreaking. So
yeah.
Okay. So the mandatory annexes are okay. So you will download a folder. Actually, I'll show you the next slide first here. So this is what you're going to see. Okay, so this is a screenshot of the Funding and Tender portal when you start your application process. Okay, so this is where you upload all your annexes here. This is where when you click in these here, this is where you click and you put in all the information about the actual project straight into the portal, whereas these are all uploads. And over here on the left, see it's download part B templates. This is where, so these are what you use. Only use these ones. Don't use the ones that are on the front page of the Funding and Tender portal. They're only samples. So make sure you use these because there's tags on them and they're particular to your submission. So make sure you use these. So what is in there? So we'll go through all of these. We'll go back. So there's the budget table, which is an Excel macro budget. It's got a life of its own. But again, we'll go through this after Christmas. I'm not going to go through it now. So then it's the creative dossier of the project submitted for funding. So there's a mandatory template that you fill in. So that's where you slot in everything about this is all your creative material. And in there, that gives you good instructions about the length of each of the documents that you're putting in, like the lengths of the writer's notes, the lengths of the templates, or the treatment. So make sure you have the instructions there. Co-development agreement must be uploaded. The proof of ownership of rights must be uploaded. So those documents, you have to have those documents and upload them. And it's the rights of adaptation, but you have to have the rights of everything included in the application for definite, okay, or it'll be deemed ineligible. Supporting documents, co-production, distribution, and financing. So these are any LOIs you have, any LOCs that you've been talking to sales agents about the project, and then they're really interested in the project and they'd love to hear more about it and they're looking forward to it. Perfect. Irish letters from distributors or sales agents is okay, but when you have international letters, it shows that there would be an international interest in the project, and that's what they want. They want projects that go cross borders. And again, try and, like I said, with your partner as well, so don't just get letters from the two countries, try and look further afield. What have we got next? The PDF with information about the film works to be generated via the media database, which is, I'll come back, which way am I going? This way. This is the media database here. So when you fill that in the portal, when you fill it all in, you can download a PDF and then you re-upload it here. There's a method to the madness. There is a reason why, because everything that you fill in here, the evaluators can't see. So this is information going directly into Brussels, directly into the Creative Europe, into the system, but the evaluator can't see it. So they need to see this too. So what you do is, so you put it all in, you download a PDF, and then you upload it here. I know, they should be able to, but this is just the way it is, and this is why we have to deal with it. So this goes up here. I'll go back. Then we got information on independence, ownership, and control. This is a mandatory template. This is an Excel where you go through the shareholdings of your company, and then the declaration of the language of the submitted materials as well. And the reason for this is that if the treatment's in Irish, say, They are, if one of the elements that the writer's notes are in Irish, um, they have to know in advance because the evaluator has to be able to understand Irish. And plus, the evaluators aren't from your own country. The way it works is that it's your project is evaluated, your application is evaluated by two experts from different countries outside of your own. So they have to find somebody who's based in another country who's on the panel, who's registered as an expert, who can speak Irish and can go through it. So it's really important that they have to source these in advance. So you have to list them out. So that's the declaration. And again, that's an Excel. It does look like a lot. It is a lot, but that's why we're here and we can help you go through this and we can help you. That's, we record that technical session too, so it's handy for you to go back over because there's a lot of little bits which can really throw you. But that's why we're here. So use us. That's why we're here. Okay, so do keep in contact with us if you're applying to apply. Jules, I'll hand you over. I'll hand over to you here.
So AI, lots of talk around AI, and it's absolutely okay. There's not obviously you may have your own ethical concerns or anything like that. That's up to you if you prefer to use it or not. But it is absolutely is allowed. Would say just really really stress. Just be careful with it. Well, I'll go into the details on the slide here, but just in terms of using it for your application, just be very very careful. What we're seeing with a lot of applications we see with things in is, when I say we, just across Europe generally, it can look very, very sanitized, very clean. It kind of loses that flavor, that story, and you're all storytellers, so make sure you don't lose your story within your application. It's okay to use it as a tool. It can be a very effective tool. It can really kind of get you unstuck and outside of your own head sometimes, or suggest things. But just be very, very careful around that. And check all of the information. Anything you're using, actually, I think you might have that in here. I'll go down through this, and if anything's not covered. So applicants are fully responsible for the content of the proposal. So even those parts produced by the AI tool must be transparent in disclosing which AI tools were used and how they were utilized. So you are required to verify the accuracy, validity, and appropriateness of the content and any citations generated by the AI tool and correct any errors or inconsistencies. So just for anyone who's not aware, the likes of, say, ChatGPT, they're only, so in terms of the content that they're getting from online, it's only valid up till, as of now, up till December 24. So it's not always current information, and also it just doesn't get it right. There's some really, really bonkers stuff out there. You can see just samples of things that are just funny, as long as somebody catches them. When they're not at all accurate, it just makes things up. It will always give you an answer. It just may not be the right one. So always just be responsible for your own work, read it and check things. If you've gotten it to generate information for you, if you're going to go, oh, give me a list of, check the information. It's okay to get that list. It can sometimes help you just get something together, but check it. Provide a list of sources used to generate content and citations, include those generated by the AI tool. Double check citations to ensure they're accurate and properly referenced. Be conscious of the potential of plagiarism, where the AI tool may have reproduced some substantial text from other works, other sources. Check the original sources to be sure you're not plagiarizing someone else's work. And this is really important for your content. If there's anything, because you can actually submit documents, if anyone hasn't done it, to ChatGPT or whatever platform you're using, and you can get it to say, right, drag information from this. I want this, and mix them with this, or take this information, scan it for this type of information. And it can be quite effective for doing that. But make sure any document you upload or any information that you input, if you say, oh, I want to give it some information for it to work on and to expand upon that, make sure you never input any information that you wouldn't be happy to have seen worldwide. Because it has happened, it does happen. So many things have been indexed in terms of the film industry. People have had a lot go out, pitch decks, all sorts that have been seen publicly and publicly indexed on a Google search because they've uploaded it. So if you're not happy for it to be seen in front of the entire world, advice is do not upload it. And then also be careful that it hasn't gone and plagiarized somebody else's work and that you're uploading that. And acknowledge the limitations of AI tool in the proposal preparation, including the potential for bias, errors, and gaps in knowledge. Of course, a lot of those kind of ones are going down to if you're using it anywhere in production, people are using it for various things. You always have to acknowledge use of any AI tool in any creative process. That is extremely important. It's again not that is not allowed. It's all about acknowledging this part is AI. We're seeing it in a lot of content, even some certainly in the video games call, they're preparing content, and you may do that. Maybe visuals. People are putting their visual content together to show this is what it will look like, and they don't mind people doing that to give a flavor of what it's like, but declare that you have used AI to generate those images or those concepts. Just declare it, and that will be fine.
Yeah, well, thanks a million. Yeah, it's just to be careful when you're using it. There's another question here about a sales MG in place, an amendment deal with European co-producers. All good, it's a good start. Doesn't fit the criteria as an applicant, but can they use the Irish executive producer company as the applicant? Maybe drop us a line about this, Rob, and we can go through it, because ideally, if you have a company, and if your company, if you are in, like, who's in the co-development agreement? So is it the exec producer or is it you? So it should be your company with the European co-develop. So maybe the European partner has the track record that they can be coordinator, and then it keeps it cleaner. If you bring in an Irish exec producer company, you can do that, but maybe I'll drop you an email after this and we can go through that in more detail, I think. Okay. And yeah, how to apply. Okay, so just some tips. Give yourself enough time to prepare your application. There's a lot of different sections that you've seen, a lot of documents to complete. The first thing you do right now is make sure that you have your partner in place. Start talking about the co-development agreement and get those LOIs. It's coming up to Christmas. Target them now. This application is due in at the end of February. They could be chasing their tail after Christmas. So I know it's probably not good timing to look for their letters now, but get the request in there for those letters, because they tend to take a while to get back with their LOIs. So and the more LOIs and LCs you have, the stronger the application is. Aim to submit the day before the deadline. Yesterday was the deadline for Slate and the first TV and online content deadline. And we dealt with a lot of applications yesterday, and a couple of companies ran into difficulties. So please don't submit on the day of the application, because anything can happen. There could be glitches in the system. So please try and do it at least the day before, not the week before. And you can always upload it. And then if you're waiting for that one LOI that you know is going to make a big difference, don't wait until the end. Upload what you have. And if that comes through on time, you can re-upload it. You can go in and re-upload it, but at least it's in. It takes the last application that's in there. Answer every aspect of every question to avoid losing crucial marks. Don't know how many times we said that this time, but you have to answer every word, because that's where the points are. The evaluators are directed specific questions and documents to score the award criteria. So you have to include the relevant information. So, repeat if necessary. Don't presume you've answered the question somewhere else, and avoid referring back to questions in another section. Okay, the evaluator has good few applications to go through, probably really long creative dossiers. They're not necessarily going to go back through it, and they don't have to, because they're going to be targeting certain questions that are supposed to have all that information. So do repeat yourself. And not with fluff. Okay, when I talk about repeat yourself, definitely in terms of the question, just answer the question individually and make sure all the answers are there. And allow your time to score your application against your award criteria, or have a colleague to do so. Now, to give you an idea of the results that we have now, the first year, it was a lot. So I think, there was a lot of applications. 62 selected, was 41%. As we went down through it, last year there was 345 applications, up from 255 the year before. There were 324 eligible, 40 was selected, as a 12% success rate. Okay, down from 48% in 2022. Now, on that, so it was 6.5 million budget in 2025. This year's going to be 9 million. So there is a bit of a difference in terms of budget. Also, the companies were allowed to apply for Slate and for co-development, as well, and video games. So there were more applications. The word is out though, so people are applying for this, and people are getting used to the portal as well, so they're not as intimidated as they used to be. So they are applying more. So just be careful, because with that last year, the amount of points that you had to get was 89 points. So that's an A plus. Okay, so it's 89 points you had to hit to be awarded funding in co-development last year. So you have the amount of detail, you have to go through every single, that's why we're telling you to go through every single word, because there are points attached every single word in those word criteria and in those questions. We're hoping it'll come down, but I can't see, like the year before, it was 86 points you had to get to be awarded funding. So I'd say it's going to come back down to that. I don't think it's going to come much less. I could be wrong, but with all of this, the new funding, it could just be more about stabilizing the situation. So I'd say maybe 86. So that gives you an idea of the amount of points that you need to get. So make sure when you're answering the question that you're going across your award criteria at the same time, and try and get as many points as you can. And just to give you a few slides here with just the projects that have been awarded, all different types of animation. It was covered there, a drama from Savage Production, Tales of Terror from Dream Logic, and you can see the partners involved as well. The Battle for Peace with a company from Norway, and then Blinder Films were minority partners. So even the big companies are working as minority partners, because some, they could go for Slate, but then they could also be a minority partner in another project from another country, right? So this is 21. 22 was a good year. 22, we had 6 projects. Again, it was a mix of animation, documentary, um, and drama as well. 23, we had um, three projects, and then in 24, again, where they were just partners or minority partners, so there was no coordinator. Projects that what got through, and it was the same last year as well. So it was only 2 projects that got through, and they were partners rather than coordinators. So it is difficult. Doesn't mean it can't be done, but it just, if you start now and really focus on your project now, you're in a much better chance to get funding. So, thank you very much. We'll do Q&A now. I'll turn off the recording, and we'll do some have some questions, and you can come on screen if you like. Contact us. Um, my address is there, creativeeuropeireland.eu, and then Jules is Jules at creativeeuropeireland.eu. I'm based over on the East Coast. Jules is on the West, and you can come to either of us. So, and come in, and our website is there. All the information on the calls are on the website, and we will send you. Anybody who's registered for this call will get an email detailing detailing the details of the technical session, which will be after Christmas. So start thinking about your project now, and then we will go through all the nitty-gritty after Christmas in the first week or 2 of January. We need to pin down the date, and we will let you know. Okay, so thanks a million, and I'm going to stop recording now. If I can figure out how. Yeah.